The big noon Fox announcement for the Ohio State-Indiana game now marks 6 consecutive noon starts for the Buckeyes to close out the season. But Ryan Day says he has enough fan backlash that the start of the games really is the least of his worries.
I got to deal with a lot of fan backlash for other things other than the times of the games, so I'm going to leave that for other people to deal with. I got other things I got to deal with. Whatever they tell us to play, we're going to play. It doesn't matter where it is. It could be in a baseball field. It could be 11 a.m. It could be at night. Whatever it is, we're going to put the football down and go play, and I'll worry about the team.
Will said if he gets to play at noon, he can complete 80% of the season. So I think the controversy's over. So, and you get a noon kickoff, he'll complete 80. So I think we can all, I know a lot of people have problems with what we're doing, but if it means the quarterback can complete 80% of his passes, we'll take it.
But Will Howard seems to like the early starts. He says that you end up waiting around at the hotel all night for those night games, and you can really start to get pretty antsy.
I kind of like getting up and rolling, man. There's no thought. I think sitting around sometimes, I don't really mind. I'm going to play whenever they tell us to play. And there's something I kind of like about just getting up and going. There's less thinking involved. You kind of just get up. They're sitting in the hotel, and for me, it's more just I just get antsy. I'm like, man, I just want to go. I just want to go play this game. I don't like sitting around all day just waiting. Obviously, the fans. It'd be cool to have a night game, sure, but I'm not worried about it. I'll play whenever they tell me to play. And
When Ohio State lost starting left tackle Josh Simmons with a season-ending injury at Oregon, the offensive line was forced to find answers as their most vulnerable unit. But today, they were named a finalist for the Joe Moore Award, which recognizes the best offensive line unit in the country each year.
That's a prestigious award. Those guys usually go unnoticed. That's the nature of the position. If you're an offensive lineman, they buy their clothes and true value hardware. They don't really get a lot of attention. They're not the guys that are out in the limelight like some of these other guys, but they work their tails off. I think that's the gist of any team that's going to be a really good football team. Has to be strong on both lines, and the fact that they've been recognized for that's something that's pretty cool. But now we got to live up to that standard every day. So.
I think that's huge, and I think that speaks a lot to the work that those guys have put in. And they've caught some flack at times this year, and they've had to work through injuries and shuffle around a little bit, but those guys have stuck together, man, and they've done an unbelievable job, and I'm so proud of them, and I'm really glad that they, I don't care about my own individual accolades, but I am really excited that they got that. I know it's only a preliminary semifinal thing, but the fact that they're getting recognized for the work that they're doing, especially as an O-line, they don't get a lot of praise and accolades, and I feel like they only get really seen when they don't do their job. They don't really get the praise when they're doing a hell of a job out there, and I think they've been doing a great job keeping me protected and getting the ball downhill and running the ball at guys, and I'm really happy for them.
Donovan Jackson moving over from guard to tackle to play a new position changed the trajectory for the Buckeyes, and that selflessness has been recognized throughout the entire team, including their premier running back duo in Trevion Henderson and Quinshon Junkins. The two have been each other's biggest cheerleaders all season while playing the same position. And last week, we even saw them on the field at the same time against Purdue.
I think that's kind of what we're talking about. And Trevion really has worked hard on his receiving skills. He spends a bunch of time on the jugs, running routes. He had spent a bunch of time running that route. Over the years, we never really got to it in the game, so we were kind of laughing that at some point we had to run that route because we had worked on it for like a couple of years and just never came up. And the look was right, and I thought he really executed it well. A little slant and go on a linebacker, which we felt like was a mismatch for us. So well done there. But yeah, when you have guys that are playing well without the football in their hands like they are, they can do multiple things, not just carry the ball. It gives you more versatility to expand those packages. I think he's running very well. I think he's running with power. I think he's playing well without the football. He's shown that he can do damage around the edge. He can do damage up the middle. Great pass protection. So I think he's playing at a high level, and I think that he and Quinshon are a big part of, or a great example of what it means to be unselfish. And that's a big part of our run here in November and at the end of the season. Not worrying about touches, not worrying about carries, not worrying about those types of things, just knowing that, the number one goal is to win. And usually when you have that attitude, you find a way to win. And I think that both of those guys have been very unselfish this year, and they're both playing very well.
He's an extremely versatile back that can play all three downs for you. So, he has the ability to run the ball up inside the tackles because of his physicality, but he has speed, long speed, where you can use him on perimeter runs. And he's really a weapon in the passing game. You saw us use him a little bit more in the passing game, and we're starting to get a better understanding of what he can do and how he can help us. It's a long season, so we haven't really had to put a ton of both hitting a few splits, just because we probably play right at the halfway point right now of the season. So the fact that those guys have contributed the way they have, they really kind of feed off each other. But I think he's a complete running back, and add to that his ability on third down and pass pro pickup, which I think he's been outstanding at. I don't know if there's a better run blocking or pass blocking back in the country than Trey right now. So he gives you everything you want around that.
Trey's been grinding away at that, man. We all week we were working on that route, and he was getting extra work with it after practice. And I remember going back to spring, throwing balls to him over the shoulder and him catching, working on his ball skills. And he wanted to make that, more of part of his game and catching the ball. And I think he runs great routes. I mean, he broke that guy off. You put a linebacker on Trey. That's disrespectful. That's unfair. Trey's going to run right away from him. And I mean, you saw, I looked to the field and I tried to look the safety off of my eyes, and as soon as I looked over there, 31 just ran, because he thinks I'm going to mech on the inside fade route. But that just shows you that having that ability to put the running back out in space and make a guy miss like that, it gives us a lot of different new options. And when Trey is able to win on a route like that and get open down the field, that I think it's great. It's a whole new facet for our offense, and I think him and Q both run really good routes and catch the ball well, so it's good.
Chip Kelly says that he puts the offense in different looks for each defense they face, and we keep seeing more and more weapons get involved, with 8 players getting receptions in the past 2 games.
I don't think we hold anything back. I think our offense is always game plan specific in terms of who we're playing and how do we attack what they do. Each defense you face is somewhat unique, and so you can say, hey, this team's a little bit like this team, but not totally like that team. So I think it's not, hey, this is a really good play, let's not run it because we're going to need it down the road. It's, you have to win every game, and I don't think you can take that approach of let's save this for another game, because you don't know how games are going to express themselves during the course of the game itself. So everything we do is just game plan specific, especially now that we've gotten into conference play.
Larry's pretty much in, you guys.
Yeah, I mean, we could add stuff that I think we may have done in the spring, but we haven't used yet, just because we haven't faced that defense yet.
Will came into Ohio State a 59% career passer from Kansas State. Now he's 74% with the Buckeyes, and he credits the coaches and all of the talent at Ohio State for that.
I think a lot of it's coaching and the way that I've been, taught here. And something, Coach Kelly's emphasized with me since I got here, man, was just completions, and how many completions are out there on the field that, it's just easy, and just take them. I feel like a lot of times in my career at Kansas State, I was trying to force things in windows, or I didn't really need to. There's checkdowns all over the field, man, and getting the ball to Trey or G or Q in the flats and letting them run for 6 to 12 yards. I mean, there's some plays on Saturday where, I may have missed mech down the middle running one, on one play, but, I check it down to Q and we get 6 yards out of it. And it's like, well, we're in 2nd and 4, it's like, that's still a pretty good position to be in. There's just completions all over the field, and that was something I really emphasized in preseason training camp. I was shooting for 80% completion percentage every single day. That was something that, me and Billy kind of got together on, and that was my goal. And I only achieved it a couple times, and it's hard. But I think that helped me so much, and just completions are devastating to a defense. Whether it's a completion for 0 yards or a completion for 50, it doesn't matter. Just as long as you're getting the ball in your playmakers' hands. I mean, those defensive linemen are taught they got to run to the ball. They're getting tired. Anytime you can get a completion is a positive for the offense. And I'm trying to look at it more that way. And I think the way that Coach Kelly's tried to kind of drill that into my mind is kind of change my mindset on it a little bit, and it's helped me just be a lot more efficient in my passing game.
but he has not been in the Heisman conversation. And he says he's really just focused on winning the game with the team.
Man, I try not to think about that stuff, and I'm not worried about it. As long as we're winning football games, and the Buckeyes are scoring points, I'm happy. I think all that stuff kind of takes care of itself, and if you focus too much on individual accolades, then a lot of things get cloudy. And I've always been a believer in, if you take care of the things that matter, then the individual accolades and all that kind of stuff will come, and the more I focus on my teammates and being the best teammate I can be, being the best player I can be for my teammates, being the best leader I can be, then things like that may come into consideration, but I'm not worried about it, man. As my stats, as long as I'm playing good football, grading out a champion, and taking care of the ball, that's all I'm worried about.
Well, when I think about the Heisman, I think about the most outstanding player in college football, and I think sometimes it can come down to statistics, which I think is unfortunate. But that is what it is, and I know that our team, we've had Heisman finalists before. This team is worried about winning, and that's really the only thing they're worried about right now.
At each practice, one Buckeye is given a brick to place down as a symbol of their foundation and how they're constantly stacking these building blocks that will help them weather the storms that a college football season brings. It helps them stay consistent and shows how all of their hard work is paying off.
Well, I think when you start the season with, so much talk about expectations and a bunch of guys that come back for a certain reason, I think it's easy to start focusing on down the road, kind of where we are now. And in order to, make sure the guys understand that the work that we're putting in August and September as we're building up the season and building up our foundation, all those days matter, and that we had to continually work on that because, how do you know how your foundation is? You go through a storm and you find out what's left when, you wake up the next morning. Well, it's the same thing. We knew that we're going to be storms along the way, and there's going to be big games along the way, and all those days and those bricks that we put in the foundation are going to be what matters the most. And ultimately it comes down to our foundation against the opponent and all the work that we've put up into that moment. You don't just show up and think you're going to play in a game. You got to put all the work in and build a foundation up to that point of the fundamentals and the reps and all those things. So after each practice, we hand somebody a brick, they go over, they put it in the foundation. But we also take pride in it. You got to make sure that it's real tight in there, because you can't just put a brick in the foundation. If someone's just lazily putting a foundation in, when a storm hits, it's going to fall apart. Well, it's the same thing with a team. If you put a lazy day in, or you're not really having a lot of detail in your work, and you just kind of let it get away because you're going through the motions, it's going to catch us down the road. So it's a little bit of a metaphor to making sure that we show up every day and put the work in.
Yeah, it's huge, man. It's something we talked about a lot in fall camp, and I think it was one of our first meetings in fall camp. It was, we talked about building a foundation, and if you don't have a strong foundation, your house, something happens, house is going to fall down, and you got to start with that foundation. Have a strong foundation. And if you build that every single day and continue to just make it better and better and more stronger, and we've kind of emphasized that every single day matters, and I think that's one of the things that I like the most about that, that brick thing that we're doing, is that, we can visually see that every single day that we're putting in is building up this little brick tower that, we're building, and it's a visual representation of all that work, you're putting in, because when you're in the moment, you don't really see it. It's one of those things that you could work out for 6 months and you see results at the end of those 6 months, but in the process of that, you don't really, you're not going to just go lift some weights and drop 30 pounds and look great in one day. It's a process, and it kind of, I think, just throughout the process of things, it keeps us grounded and says, this is why we're doing it. And you look back after a couple weeks and it's like, man, that little brick sculpture is, it's turning into something here, and it reminds us that every single day, the work that we're putting in doesn't go unnoticed.
As I feel the wind coming in, the Buckeyes head to the Windy City this week to face Northwesrern. And we did a weather check out there. It should be about 12 to 15 mile per hour winds, which was a relief for Coach Day, given that brutal game the Buckeyes played there just 2 years ago. We all saw the pregame warm-ups and the problems they had kicking and throwing the ball. It forced the Buckeyes to be one-dimensional, but using their feet is something that Will Howard has been focusing on.
We've always had good games against Northwestern. Just most recently, a couple of years ago, when we played, Ryan Field, and the weather was a tough day, but it was, I think the final was 21-7, and that was everything we could handle to get out of there with the win. We played them in the Big Ten championship game. It's very similar to those teams. They're very sound at what they do. Their scheme is very sound. They're built from the inside out, and they're gonna make you win the game. They're gonna force you to earn it, and so they're a very good team, and a Big Ten team on the road, and you're in November, so we have to play well, and we always feel like it's about us, but we want to know our opponent, and they're always well coached. Okay, good. 70 degrees less than our 70 miles an hour less. Yeah, you learn. You learn to always have the ability to go wildcat. You better have that in November, and it might have been October, but in the Big Ten, because we came out for pregame warm-ups, and the punter kicked it. The ball went straight in the air and landed on our side of the line of scrimmage, and I had to grab the ref and say, "What did that happen in the game?" I didn't even know the rule on that. And so what ended up happening was when the wind was in our face, and Northwestern did the same thing. They were trying to eat up the clock and huddle, and then when the ball was behind us, we were trying to go no huddle so that we could punt the ball and throw the ball with the wind behind us. But even when the wind was behind us that day, it was a challenge. So CJ did a great job pulling 2 big runs for us, and that's kind of what bailed us out. But that was a nightmare of a day for sure.
Tyleek's good to go.
Tyleek's ready to go.
Ryan Field is undergoing renovations, so Northwestern needed a temporary field for them to play on, and they will host Ohio State at none other than Wrigley Field, the home of the Chicago Cubs. Yes, a baseball team, but Ryan Day says that the team will practice here with real grass to simulate that experience with that makeshift football field they're making at Wrigley.
I'd like for them to see just the makeup of it. I want them to see the turf. I want them to see where the infield is filled in and some of the sod. I'd like for them to see how we're going to handle halftime. We're going to be in the bullpen, not going up in the locker room. There's just some different things that I'd like for them to see, and then also show them a little bit about what it's like, because it is going to be different. It's going to be a different feel there. It's a baseball park. It's different than a football stadium. So do I think it's a big deal? No, but a lot of people do that. They bring their team to the game or to the venue the day before. We don't usually do that, but we will on Friday.
Ryan Day talked about going to Fenway growing up, and the whole team is excited about the opportunity to play in such a historical venue.
Well, first off, it's got great tradition. Growing up, going to Fenway Park, and being around baseball and seeing some of the great games played in that stadium. And then as I got older, I had an opportunity to go see the Cubs play in Wrigley, and just the surrounding area, the restaurants that are in the area. It's just got a great vibe there, right in that neighborhood. It's a very unique place with an unbelievable history, and so it's a great opportunity for us. I'm also excited for Buckeye Nation to get to the game, and the fans to be there as well and experience that, and to get an idea of what kind of presence we'll have at the game. I've been a part of teams that have played at Yankee Stadium, and then over in San Francisco where the Giants play, and it is different. It's a different feel, but it's a great opportunity for our team, and ultimately there'll be 100 yards of football field, and there'll be stands on both sides, and we'll compete. So we're excited about it, and we practicing on the turf this week, or on the grass this week, to simulate what it'll be like there.
Yeah, I think it's cool. I've seen just highlights of the football game there, and I've been to a game at Wrigley when I was out recruiting once. But the fact that you can play in settings like that is pretty cool, and I think it makes it unique. Obviously, they're refurbishing their stadium, so they got to either build the one that they did on campus or go to Wrigley. So the fact that we get to be the one team that plays in Wrigley, I think will be pretty cool, and I think our players will enjoy that.
That'll be really cool. I've seen a game there one time. I think it was in my senior in high school. I went out there. I think it was actually at a camp at Northwestern. But that was a cool stadium, man. It'll be interesting to play football in there. But I'm excited, man. It's a historic landmark, and in a really cool city. I'm looking forward to it. It'll be a cool opportunity.
We will have you covered live from the Windy City right here on The Fan.